In this module, we'll take a look at SQL injection. SQL injection might occur if an application has snippets of SQL sent to it that it then incorporates into a query that's already in the application and executes that modified query. SQL injection can be fairly devastating for an application because it gives access to the database through the application, and the attack runs with whatever privileges the application has in the database system. Since the database is trusted by the application server, most firewalls are not going to interfere with this kind of an attack. There is a special case of intrusion detection system called a web application firewall that may detect some of the more common versions of these types of attacks. So we can imagine that a user is sending information into the application through one of the parameters. So let's say they send this little snippet of SQL injection here. They type it in, submit the request, that goes to the web server. The web server passes the request on to the application. Now at this point, that little piece of SQL is then joined with the fragment of the query that was already in the application. And this forms a new query that executes what the original query would have executed anyway, but now it also carries out some additional instructions. So in the example here, this tautology, or statement that's always true, essentially says that I want to see all the rows where the username is equal blank, or where this other statement is true, 55 equals 55. Well, of course, 55 always equals 55. That's always going to be true, regardless of which row in the database we're referring to. And so all the records are returned from the database. The response travels back to the application, then through the web server, on over to the user, at which point the user will see whatever information the application is designed to display from the database. We can take a look at how this works in a running application. So here we have Matilda, and we'll go to the login page. There's two fields where input is submitted, username and password. Let's take a look at what this page does. We go to inspect element, we'll look at the form. And once we find the form, we'll see that it goes to index.php and it passes a parameter page equals login.php. All right, we'll take a look at index.php to see how this login process works. So this is quite a large page here. So we're just going to kind of skip ahead a little bit and locate where the login process is handled. You'll notice that the query handler is set up here, the MySQL handler. So that's telling us where the queries are likely to be stored. And then we'll go on down to the login process. Right. So here we have an include process login attempt.php that's in the includes folder. Now that we've tracked that down, in here we'll notice that those two parameters are captured into variables L username and L password. We'll follow username. And essentially what happens is we see that the system first checks to see if the account exists, and then it goes on to authenticate the account. So let's go take a look at account exists, and it's in the SQL query handler. So here we see that there's a query string created, and it's trying to get the username from the accounts where the username is equal to whoever that user is. Later on, there's going to be the authenticate account query that's going to run in order to check if the password is correct. In both cases, the query is being run in the application tier. It's not in a procedure in the database, making these queries vulnerable by default. So if a bad actor was to inject some kind of a snippet of SQL that worked gracefully with the query that's already here, that would extend this query into a new query that would carry out the original instructions, plus the extra instructions that the hacker is injecting in. So you can see how this works with the slide that we looked at earlier. This little snippet here that was injected fits with the query that was already there, syntactically forming a correct new query, and so the new query runs just fine. Again, if this query had been inside of a stored procedure, because the stored procedure keeps the query and the input separate from each other and doesn't consider the input to be part of the query, the attack wouldn't have worked. So if we go back over to the login page, we know that we have to finish off that query that we were looking at a moment ago. So just for illustration, let's fill this in. So if we inject a single quote, that's going to close off the opening quote there. And then we saw that the tautology was set up. So there was an or statement. And then we just need something to be true. Username equals blank is probably never going to be true. But with an or statement, either side of the or can be a true statement. So if we put a 7 equals 7 here, then that would be true. And that'll make this entire statement true for every row in the database. We still have some extra query left over that we have to deal with. And that's where that dash dash space came into play, which is a comment. So it just comments out the rest of the statement. So if we take this injection over and we put it inside of the username field here, then it'll make the query true and the system will let us log in, regardless of whether we have a password or not. And so you'll notice that that's exactly what happened for the reasons that we described. Now, another way to stop SQL injection would be to use some kind of filtering mechanism, like escaping dangerous characters, but this is already proven to be weak and has been bypassed in various ways over the years. A second popular way that's a little bit stronger is to use parameterized queries. Parameterization causes the database to separate the original query from the input. It doesn't treat the input as part of the query. And so it's not possible to extend the query beyond its original intent. The problem is that although parameterized queries are good at stopping SQL injection, they're very poor at handling other database security issues like excessive privileges, authentication bypass, and stopping stolen credential attacks. The best way to deal with these types of issues is to have a holistic solution, and that's where stored procedures come in. With a stored procedure, there's no need to give the application excessive privileges, such as the ability to select, insert, update, delete, alter, and create. You can simply give the application permission to execute the procedures, and that's enough. It doesn't need anything else to function. And so by moving these queries into stored procedures, we would be able to successfully stop SQL injection, plus fix some other database security issues, such as minimizing stolen credential attacks and following the least privilege model.